What is up, YouTube family? Your boy is finally reaching UNC status. At the time of this recording, I am 25 years old, and I just want to talk about things I've learned in my 20s that I think will benefit you no matter what age you are. But these are things I hold close to my heart and what I very value, sayings and beliefs that I hold true to myself to make sure that I'm making the right decisions going forward. First, we're going to talk about pursuing passion over convention. As many of you know, I went to school for computer science. I studied 4 years and then I became a software engineer at 2 companies. I was at State Farm and then I went to American Airlines where I got free flights. I hope they'll give me those back one day. What I've learned since then is now I am a full-time content creator. I've been making content on TikTok and Instagram since I was 22 back in 2021. Ever since then, it's the passion that has grown in me. It's what I enjoy to do and what I love to do. I've heard many times that, people are usually worried because they're always like, oh, is it a secure job, whether it is or not, because of the fact that, it's a job that's considered like entertainment. It's not as traditional as most people say. I decided to do this because I feel like in my community, in my culture, a lot of us are really pushed to be doctors, lawyers, and engineers. And don't get me wrong, I became an engineer and did everything, that my parents wanted me to do, but it wasn't what I was passionate about. And although it would be, much more secure to be in a profession that is one of those, I believe that at any point in your life, whether it's a more secure job or it's not, you can lose it at any time. One thing I really follow is, Jim Carrey once said how his father was an accountant and he was actually a really great comedian. And he didn't want to be a comedian because he thought, oh, I may not have a job one day. But at some point he said how even when he was an accountant, he actually got let go. So you never know where things will take you, and I think it's always best to chase after what makes you happy. I know it sounds cliche, but chase after what makes you happy and what you're passionate about so you can give it your all. A lot of people always ask me how my parents have reacted to this because, in my culture, it isn't common. But I feel like my parents have been very supportive. I believe that they have a really great head on my shoulders. Although they get a little worried about it, I try to make sure they understand, I enjoy doing this and I'm in it for the long run to make sure I continue to deliver for the people that show their support and belief in me. My mantra for everything has always been 1% better every day, or, my bios have Dallas Cat Dad, striving to be better, just becoming the best version of myself. And one prime example I'll use is my hair growth journey. So since 2022, the beginning of 2022, about, I think it was the week of my birthday, January 21st is my birthday. And that week, I decided that bullying works and social media is not always the nicest place to be, but a lot of people would make comments about my hair because at the time I was balding. I was very secure in myself and, I had accepted that, I was going to lose my hair. So I started working out in college because I knew that I thought it would be better to be bald and swole than bald and scrawny. My consistency isn't just through maintaining just all the routines that I have, continuing to build my brand as Rosset Kaiser, as a influencer, content creator, and just fostering personal growth in my life. I very much think that consistency is important because I've seen the firsthand success that I've got by making these small steps in order to get to the result that I desire. Next, I want to talk about is embracing vulnerability. I've made it very clear on a lot of my platforms how much I push the message of mental health to the full extent and always being transparent about what I'm going through, especially when, mental health month comes around, men's mental health month comes around, or sprinkling into a lot of my videos throughout the years, whether it's depression, anxiety. I do heavily struggle with it, and I'm very much open to talk about it because I feel like in the world, in the community, especially for men who, the suicide rate has continued to increase throughout time, and I think it's very important with how much pressure is on men for the roles that they have to fill into society, is daunting, and it can be quite difficult for a lot of people to navigate. As an influencer, I do show the great sides of my life, and that's what I have to do as building a brand, making that aesthetic, but then also taking a step back and showing you the things that go on behind the scenes. Life is not just through the lens that you see, but also through my eyes. And, it might look like everything is going fine, but there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the back end that you may not see. And I always want to let you know that, hey, maybe I'm struggling through something, and, it takes time. You go through these humps, and then you just have to get out of the mental slump. The mental game is not an easy game to play. A lot of people will just say like, oh, you just need to pray to get better, but that's not the case. You have to actively practice the things that make you healthy, whether it's journaling, whether it's going to the gym, taking the time to maybe go to therapy like I've started therapy and it's been great. And if you need to take the further step to go to a psychiatrist, that's completely fine. If you need the medications, I don't like the stigma that society has put on trying to make ourselves better mentally. I know a lot of people will say, oh, we didn't have this back in the day. We also didn't have social media back in the day. So take your mental health very seriously. Next, we're going to talk about quality over quantity. Whether it's the way I make my calculated purchases and how I approach them, or building my relationships, quality always takes precedent over any amount of quantity I can possibly think of. Whether it's the way I curate my Amazon storefront to make sure that I have well-researched products placed in there, or fostering deep relationships with all my friends, family, and loved ones. Substance always takes priority over any sort of superficiality. You might see a lot of the nice things that I have, whether it's, cars, watches, or jewelry, whatever it may be, clothes, whatever it may be. Just know I take a lot of time to make the decision on whether I'm going to purchase it or not, to the point where it might be analysis paralysis. And what that is like, I'll analyze something and make all the research and then just like freeze and not even purchase it and completely forget about it and then come back to it later. But quality always trumps quantity, and that's the life you want to build. I'd rather have 2 amazing friends than 10 bad friends. Even to the extent of making the decision of the car that I wanted to purchase. A lot of people would have been like, oh, you should got a Lamborghini, you should have got a Ferrari, you should got a McLaren. But first of all, I'm a big Porsche fan, but also on top of that, the Porsche 911, the reason for it, I purchased the car back in March and revealed it in July. So I took my sweet time with telling you about it so I can enjoy it for myself, because not everything is about social media. But also knowing that the Porsche 911 is a car with the best residual value, and it holds its value well. It's more reliable than all the rest of them. And, making those calculated decisions and choosing quality over anything. The world is filled with filters and facades, but it's so important to continue to stay true to yourself. And whenever I'm navigating portions of my life, whether it's my content, brand partnerships, or interactions, authenticity is the most important value. I always want to be genuine and stand on the principles that I have. A lot of people think I go to therapy just for my mental health, but it's also to make sure that I maintain that humility that my parents instilled in me. If you were to ever meet me, the last thing you'll know about me is that I'm an influencer. It is never something I lead with. It's the last thing I ever want to talk about, because what I want is that authentic, genuine interactions with people. And I feel like some people, if I told them that, they put a filter and facade to not see me as who I am. There is an extent to how much authenticity you can put on social media. Don't get me wrong. I always like to think that at Rosset Kaiser and Rosset Kaiser might do the same things, but they're 2 different entities always. And I would say it's really difficult to always translate who you are as a person through a lens. So whenever I'm out and about, I like to always put my best foot forward and make sure people know who I really am. Next is balancing independence and connection. It's very important to always put boundaries in your life, because you do have priorities that do take precedent over constantly, hanging out with people. You want to spend time with your friends, you want to spend time with your family, you want to spend time with your loved ones, but sometimes you have to say no. It is hard to say no, but sometimes you have to, because maybe work might take priority at the time. Other things come up and you need to take care of them. I feel like I've set the boundaries that I need to when it comes to my friends, family, and loved ones, because of the fact that I am an independent person, and I think it's very important to be comfortable in your own self and comfortable in the solitude of spending time alone, and not always just throwing yourself with family and friends, loved ones, because in order to make sure you can find yourself as well. They both play essential roles in your life, and it's important to make sure that you find that balance. Number 7 is resilience in the face of setbacks. I've faced many ups and downs, whether it's my personal life, my mental health, or even my career, but I learned to bounce back stronger every single time. In your life, you're always going to have a problem no matter where you are. You can be the richest person in the world and you will still have one problem constantly trying to set you back, because that's just how life works. Life is a struggle, and you need to understand that soon in order to navigate going forward always. But you can't beat a dead horse, okay? If things do get set back and you're doing the same thing and it's not working, it's time to re-strategize, take a different course, and go in that direction. Always re-strategize and go forward. That's how I bounce back every single time. Number 8 is the joy of giving back. You know about my charity work under Project Downtown, DFW. I do participate in other charity work in order to make sure that I'm giving back to my community, because the world has, to an extent, given me more than what I can even pray or ask for. And I think it's always important to give back and make sure that our communities are flourishing as well as I do, giveaways to my audience to make sure that, you support me, you believe me, you show love to me. And I always want to share that love with you by taking everything I've received and packing it up, writing a handwritten note, and sending it off to you. Like I mentioned previously, next we're going to talk about adaptability and growth. As you grow, your interests are going to evolve, and you're going to constantly have to adapt to what is on your plate. And it's always important to not fight against that, because of the fact that you should adapt and grow in order to, succeed and flourish. When it comes to growth, it's all about learning for me. I love to learn. I always mention I don't read much, but I always mention I don't read, but in that sense, I'm usually joking. I try to read up a lot on culture. So I'm a big fan of culture because of the fact that as I've grown up, I've had a very diverse set of friends. A lot of my friends range from being, from the Middle East, from, Asia, like myself, South America, and all over the world. So learning about different cultures is something that's super important to me, and growth will always take priority over everything. If you are from any country in the world, let me know what country you are from and drop the national dish that's your favorite from there in the comments. I would love to hear it. But that life isn't just about big milestones. I think social media has put in our mind that we only need to celebrate whether we get a new car or a new house. But remember, the small wins are so important to make sure that we get to those big wins too. Always appreciate the little things that bring you that happiness and contentment, and make sure to be grateful for everything always. These are the things I've learned in my 20s. This is my journey, this is my growth, and these are the values that I hold dear to my heart that I use in order to navigate my 20s and hopefully navigate throughout the rest of my life. Make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you on the next video.